Did you know that only about 30% of Americans know their neighbors? Now, I'm kind of an anomaly in this because I know a lot of my neighbors, and as I was talking to some of y'all coming in, I know that a lot of you know a lot of your neighbors, and so that's a good thing. We're like the oddballs in the mix. But the rest of the country, the rest of our society, and many of us have a really difficult time, knowing who our neighbors are. I absolutely, I think I have great neighbors. My neighbors are better than your neighbors. Unless you're my neighbor, then you're a really great neighbor. But I have really great neighbors. In fact, my next or across the street neighbor, they have a 15-year-old, and their 15-year-old thinks of our house as like her second home, and she doesn't even knock when she walks in. She just like comes in the house, and sometimes she comes in the house just to take a nap on our couch. The other day, my older kids were away, and my younger kids were already asleep. It was like 9:30 at night, dark, and at 9:30 at night, I'm tired, and so I'm starting to fall asleep, and Hope and I are watching television on the couch, and the door opens. All the lights are outside, and we're like, who's opening our door? Well, we heard, "Hi there," and it was our neighbor, and she just came over to tell us about her week and to share what was going on in her life. And it's not just her and her family. We've got other neighbors around us who share generously from their garden. They'll share like little seedling plants to help us try to grow a garden, which never works out, but they're generous with their produce as well. And our kids have friends throughout the subdivision. It's such a joy to see them playing together. I never know who might be at my dinner table in the evening times, and it's just sometimes it's chaotic, but it's always a lot of joy. And it's not just the kids either, because some of our best, our closest friends live within walking distance of our home, and we get together regularly for parties or dinner and just try to spend time together even as life gets busy. I realize that what I have is something special because it's not everybody's experience. And in fact, it's not been my experience for much of my adult life to be in a place where people were so open with their neighbors. But you can live next door to somebody. You can live next door to somebody for years and years and years and never really know them. You could live in a community without ever really being connected to that community. This reality has grown across America in the past few decades, almost paradoxically, since the COVID-19 pandemic. Americans have been spending more time at home, through remote work and just being home with their families or being home in their household. Americans have been spending more time in their neighborhoods at home, but Americans know their neighbors even less than they did even a decade ago. And digging into the data can be challenging, but it looks like, according to one study, about 30% of Americans really don't know their neighbors beyond just the casual level of perhaps saying hello at the mailbox. And with tight schedules, with lots to do, our world, it can shrink. Our world can slowly start kind of shrink around us to just the people and the needs that are directly in front of you. You can care about your neighbors or your community, but then you get so busy that you stop noticing the people and the needs outside of your immediate family or your immediate circle. And it's easy to get so busy or distracted in life that we forget to invest deeply in our communities, that we forget to invest deeply in the people who are around us. Often we get this idea that where we live is really just a setting for the rest of our lives. Like, where we live is as a backdrop for the real stuff that happens in life. That you could just pick up, you might like where you live or not, but you could just pick up and move anywhere, and your life would go on the same as if it was just the way it is, and you're not affected so much by your environment and the people around you. But what if God invites us to something different? What if God invites us to live in a different way with our communities? What if God invites people to see where they live as much more than just a setting for the rest of their lives? Well, what if God invites us to see where we live as a place where you don't just live, but a place where you live out love on a daily basis. Today, I want to share with you a teaching from the Bible that invites a group of people to do exactly that, a group of people to invest in the communities where they have been placed, to serve faithfully and to live faithfully in a particular place. And the teaching that I'm going to share with you comes from the book of Jeremiah. And the book of Jeremiah, it's a kind of a long book, but it's found in the Old Testament part of the Bible. And I want to set a scene for you just a little bit. So if you're going to follow along in your own Bible, I'm going to be reading out of Jeremiah 29, so you can take some time to try to find that. But before we get there, I want to set the scene a little bit. So Jeremiah was a prophet, and he was writing to the people of God during a very difficult time in their history. What had happened is that the kingdom of Judah, which is the kingdom kind of around Jerusalem, had been attacked and defeated by the Babylonian Empire. So the Babylonian Empire had come in, destroyed everything, but destroying the people's homes and their temple and all the stuff around them wasn't enough. What they also did, they wanted to make sure that this defeat was sound and was like going to last. And so they rounded up a bunch of people, like a lot of people. They rounded them up, deported them from their homes, and then sent them to live in Babylon as exiles. So not only have they been defeated, but they've been plucked up from their existence, from their communities, from their homes, and forced to live in Babylon. And what this means is that we have a group of people who are forced to live in a place that they never even chose, that they didn't want to be there in the first place. They definitely aren't living the kind of life that they expected to be living. But can you imagine what they're going through? Can you imagine what they are feeling? During this time, a poet captures what they are feeling in the Psalms. In Psalm 137, the poet says, "Alongside Babylon's streams, there we sat, crying because we remembered Zion." Zion's Jerusalem, their home. Crying because we remembered our home. We hung up our lyres in the trees there because that's where our captors asked us to sing. Our tormentors requested songs of joy. "Sing a song about Zion," they would say. But how could we possibly sing the Lord's song in a foreign land? They're sitting by a stream, but it's not the stream back home. It's not the stream that they remember from their childhood. It's a stream of exile. And they're crying as they remember these homes that they've been pulled up from. And their captors are mocking them and saying, "Hey, why don't you sing those songs that remind you of back home and sing those songs of joy?" But they can't imagine joy anymore. Now, what would you do? What would you do when you find yourself somewhere where you'd rather not be? What do you do when you find yourself somewhere you would rather not be? I mean, the options aren't great in this scenario, or even in any scenario you might be living. There might be a tendency to withdraw from the good things in life. There might be easy to just kind of resent your life and the place that you're in. It would also be easy just to kind of wait for things to change. You know, I wouldn't blame you. Nobody would blame you if things were going difficult in your life. They're just like, okay, I'm just waiting for something to get better. I'm just waiting for things to change. Or you maybe, I'm just going to kind of grin and bear it and get through the best I can and treat your present situation as something to endure. And any of these responses would have been understandable for the exiles. Any of these responses would have been understanding for these people that had been taken from their homes to go live in this foreign land. But there was some political forecasters of the day, and political forecasters love to tell you what they think, right? Like we get this every day. Political forecasters, pundits love to tell you what they think and what's right and what's going to happen. And so the political forecasters of the day were trying to sell a bill of goods. They're like, "Hey, you're going to go home really soon, so don't worry about it. Everything's going to work out just fine. In a couple years' time, you're going to get to go back home and everything will get back to normal in your life." But then there's this guy, Jeremiah. Now, remember, I told you Jeremiah was a prophet, and he writes to the exiles, and he writes to tell them a different truth. He writes delivering a different message from the political commentators. He knows that they're going to be in Babylon for a while. They're not going home anytime soon. And he tells them that they need to just give up the hopes that things are going to get back to normal, that they're going to be able to return back to their old lives. Instead, he gives them a word from God about how they might not only survive, but how they might actually thrive or even live in a challenging time. So now, as I promised, I'm going to get back to Jeremiah in Jeremiah 24. I might have told you 29, but it's 24. No, it is 29. Jeremiah 29. Okay. The Lord of heavenly forces, it reads, the Lord of heavenly forces, the God of Israel, proclaims to all the exiles that I've carried off from Jerusalem to Babylon. So this is the word of the Lord that Jeremiah gives them, and these are the instructions. Build houses and settle down. Cultivate gardens and eat what they produce. Get married and have children. Then help your sons find wives and your daughters find husbands in order that they too may have children. Increase in number so that you don't dwindle away. Promote the welfare of the city where I have sent you into exile. Pray to the Lord for it because your future depends on its welfare. So what does God want these folks to do? What does God want these exiles to do? These people have been taken from their homes. God wants them to build, to settle, to plant gardens, to harvest the gardens. God wants them to get married and to have children and to help their children start families. God wants them to pray for the city that they're living in, to seek the welfare of the community in which they're living in, the community that they didn't even choose. I mean, this was written to people who were forcibly relocated. And it's hard. And Jeremiah knows that it's hard. And so it would have been believable if God would have told him, just resist, just try to get by. But instead, God tells them to seek the good of a place, even the good of a place that they didn't even choose. They aren't told just to survive there. They aren't told to ignore their neighbors and keep a distance. God asks them to seek the good of a new place, to pray for it, to promote its welfare. And they don't even want to be there. They wish their circumstances were different, but God still calls them to invest around them. God still calls them to invest in the good and seek the good of their community. We often get so busy with our lives and what is happening to us. But God tells all who are listening, don't just think about your own life. Don't just think about the things going on in your own life or in your own bubble. Pay attention to what's going on around you. Pay attention to the people who are around you. Pay attention to the places that are around you. Promote the welfare of the city. Seek the good of the place that you're located in and pray for it. Seeking the good of a place, means much more than just making your life there. Seeking the good means investing in your community. It means asking yourself, what can I do to help my neighbors flourish? What can I do to help the school down the street get better? What can I do to help my neighbors who don't have food? What can I do to help make sure that they have food on their table? What can I do to help this happen? Or what can I do to help an elderly person who might be alone? How can I help them find a place? Where can I pray for my community? What can I participate in for the betterment of my community? How can I invest and make this place better for those around me? You can live somewhere without investing in it. You can live on a street and not know anyone there. You can even attend a church and remain disconnected from the people. You can live in a city and mostly just kind of experience as a backdrop to your own life. But Jeremiah tells us that if you're a person of faith, God calls you to something more. God calls you to something more. God calls you to move beyond just occupying space. Friends, don't just live where you live, love where you live. Don't just live where you live, love where you live. Love where you live. And what that means to love where you live, it's not just be romantic about the place that you live. Now, sometimes we do that. We sing songs about home and, we get patriotic about home or things like that. And so there's emotions. But love is also an action. And so it's also invest, act towards love, act love. Love where you live is to seek the good of the people and the places where you live, the people and the places around you. And this isn't all. Jeremiah tells us that there's a connection between their the good of their community and their own good. God connects the welfare of people together in this like magical way where we're all intertwined. So if somebody else good happens to them, that doesn't mean something bad happens to somebody else. That the welfare of people is attached to the welfare of the places around them. And we do not seek the good for others because we want something good for ourselves, but God has made human life in such a way that our flourishing is connected. That when you flourish, hopefully I flourish. When we able to celebrate that with one another, it's good. And so when we give ourselves in community, we often find deeper community ourselves. Don't just live where you live, love where you live. Seek the good of the city. Now, I know that seek the good of the city, like this can sound like a really big assignment. When I start to think about what this means, I think about civic things, I think about doing these big things, and it can sound like a really big task that might be for somebody else, that might be for somebody in political office, might be somebody in like a nonprofit office or a business office to seek the good. I mean, it sounds like a really big thing. But I don't think that seeking the good of your community begins with trying to fix the entire city at once, the entire community at once. It just can't. It begins with much smaller and more personal questions, like where am I willing to invest more deeply in the lives around me? Just where am I willing to invest more deeply in the lives around me? You are already places where your life is happening. You are already places where life and community happens around you, whether it's your workplace or your neighborhood, your child's school, your friendships, your church, your city. For some of you, and if you're with us last week, I said the same thing. For some of you, there are places like your doctor's office and the grocery store. And like that may be the only thing you think about outside of your home is your doctor's office and your grocery store. But I want you to know that that's your community too. And just asking yourself, God, where were you inviting me to live love by investing more deeply? The question isn't how can I do it all, but God, just where are you inviting me to live your love just by investing a little more deeply? Maybe that means learning a neighbor's name, checking on somebody. There are things that you can do daily to improve this. I shared earlier the statistic about how only about 30% of Americans know their neighbor beyond a casual level. But there's a whole segment of people that are really bucking this trend, and it's dog owners. Like it's dog owners. Now, I don't have a dog, and so I have 4 kids, and people say I need a dog. I don't need a dog. Like I have enough like things and dirt in my household. Like I don't want a dog, so please don't bring me your dogs. But I am told that dog owners, if you walk your dog, 50% of people who walk their dog actually know their neighbors. And so it's like, this act of even just being in your neighborhood, walking around, promotes this deeper sense of connection and belonging with others, because they talk to their neighbors and work that out on a deeper basis each and every day. Loving where you live, usually it doesn't begin with something all that dramatic. It begins when we just stop passing by in life and start paying attention. And you don't have to have a dog to do this. But what can you do to invest more deeply in the community around you? And for some of you, one of the places that God might be inviting you to connect more deeply and to invest more deeply is, right here at Kern. Maybe you've been coming for a while, but you still don't really know that many people, or maybe you're like thinking, how can I invest more deeply here? We'll be talking about this over the next few weeks, but we've got some small groups, belong groups that are going to be starting back up just to connect people together. Maybe it's coming to our next Belong at Kern event, which is a time just to get together with some other folks that are new to the church and learn what's going on in their lives and how we can partner better together. That's happening on September 20th. Maybe your next step is just showing up to events, not because events are all that important, because events are not important for their own sake, but they're important because they bring us together with our community. Things like the barbecue bash that's coming up, where we're going to serve barbecue to our community and just enjoy a party together. Or maybe your next step is stepping out of your immediate circle and stepping up and serving. And if you're like, I serve all the time, great, keep it up. But if you're like, I don't really know how to serve. I want to. I don't know how to serve in my community, to invest more deeply. Well, we have our food pantry here. And if you want to volunteer for that, it happens the second Saturday of every single month. I think that's this coming Saturday. It is. So it's happening this Saturday. Show up on Saturday morning and you can meet some more neighbors and invest more deeply. And these, of course, are not the only ways to love where you live. They're just simply some doors that are already open. Because the goal is not for everybody to sign up for everything. The goal specifically is not for everybody to sign up for some type of church program. But the goal is just to help each one take a next step. And that challenge is something that I want to give you over the next few weeks. Today, we're launching this series focused on loving where you live. And I want to launch a challenge along with it. And the challenge, it's really simple, but I think it's deep. It's just to take, over the next few weeks, over this month, take one concrete step to invest more deeply in the community around you. Take one concrete step between now and Labor Day to invest more deeply in the people and the places around you. Just one step. Maybe that step's at Kern. Maybe it's in your neighborhood. Maybe it's at school. Maybe it's at work or somewhere else in the community. But over the course of the next several weeks, I want to ask you to just keep asking yourself this question. God, where are you calling me to invest more deeply? And when God begins to show you, take one step. And I've got some stickers that say this, and I know, like, some buttons. And so if you're like, I need a reminder because I was supposed to bring a map to show you like our community this morning, and I forgot it. I'm working on 3 hours of sleep, so I already told you that. So I forgot the map. So I need a reminder. But like here's a button and these decal stickers. Take one of these. Take two of these. Share it with somebody. Take a step, and may it be a reminder to invest deeply in the people around you. You can sign up for this challenge online, and I want to hear your stories, because when I hear your stories about, when we hear and share our stories about how God is inviting you to invest more deeply in the community around you, it brings power. Your step may not seem like much. One step may not seem like much. One person having a sticker and putting it wherever you put stickers, may not seem like much, but an entire church doing it can make a difference. An entire community can do it together to make a difference. And I do have this map that I want to show you that I don't have. But on this map, this is a map from, if you have been at Kern for several years, which I know most of you haven't, but if you've been here for several years, in 2022, we were going through a difficult time at the church, and I was like, you know what? Let's stop focusing on ourselves and let's start praying for our community. And so this church, we have this really cool map that has pins in it. It's like map of Oak Ridge, and I'm going to have it for you next week. But it's got all these pins in it. And so what we did is we started walking around our community and placing pins in the places that we were praying for. And so I want to invite you to think about, how can you just pray for your community right around you? And I'm going to bring that map next week, and so you can put a pin in so we can keep sharing like how we're praying and physically representing the places that we're praying for. And what we did is we prayed for miracles for our neighbors, and our neighbors still need miracles. Our neighbors still need prayer. Friends, we want to become people who increasingly look beyond ourselves and to give ourselves in love, because that's the kind of people Jesus is forming us to be. Not simply a church that has programs to serve our community, but a church of people who love where they live and serve the community with the love and humility of Jesus. And it begins by paying attention, not to big things, but just ordinary things right around you. It begins with praying right around you. It begins with taking one step. And that's what this love, your love where you live challenge is all about. Is to pray, to see where your place is, to see what one step you can take towards deeper community. And your step, it doesn't have to be like anybody else's. The challenge is simply to pay attention to where God is inviting you and then respond. Now, friends, this is where our lives happens. This is where our lives happens. This is where our work happens. This is where our families happen. It's important. These are the places where we have the opportunity to do good, to invest deeply in the lives around us, to do the things that Jeremiah asked people to do, to pray for their community, and to seek the welfare of those around them. So as we continue to talk about this over the next few weeks, I want to challenge you to not let this series simply be something you think about, to not let love be simply something that you think about, but I want to invite you to pay attention, to pray for a place and to take a step. Don't just live where you live, friends. Love where you live. Right now, I want to pray for you and pray for this church and pray for our community. God, thank you so much for drawing us together today. God, I know that for some it's a miracle that they're here today. For me, just considering my last night, it's a miracle that I'm here, and I give thanks to you for drawing us together. And God, I pray that as we take a step together, that you would bless this step, not for our own sake, but you would bless this step so that we can invest in our community, so that we can love where we live and show Oak Ridge and the surrounding communities where we are that you are good and that they are worth something, and that we can live your love every single day. God, I pray for each one who is here that we would take this challenge together to love where we live. In the name of Jesus, I pray. Amen.